So I too want to give my thoughts on the Briana Chickenfry and the Grace O'Malley situation. First, I want to preface by saying, while I do think Briana is in the wrong, dogpiling on her and sending her immense amount of hate and calling her a terrible person is not going to vindicate Grace in Briana's eyes. If anything, it might even make Briana resent Grace more. She is blaming Grace for not defending her online, and she's gonna even blame Grace for hate that she's getting. I think it's important to approach it with kindness. Something clearly deeper is going wrong with Briana. I watched the podcast with Dave Portnoy and Josh Richards. One thing that stood out to me is that people often underestimate what happens in abusive and toxic relationships. For someone to stay in that kind of relationship, they mentally have to change the reality of the situation for them to justify staying in it. It's kind of like this. If I touch a hot stove, I'd immediately pull my hand away. Human nature, we as humans typically take ourselves out of dangerous situation as soon as possible. But in abusive relationships, the person being abused and the abuser will kind of distort reality and justify staying in that situation. So they'll distort reality to where they don't feel like they're in danger anymore and then want to stay there even more. This whole situation, it's kind of clear that Grace was the one true friend for Briana. The fact that Grace had to pull herself away from that situation speaks volumes, and it showed how much she actually cared. Other people in Briana's life actually cared about her going through that toxic relationship and were still okay with it. It's either that they weren't that close or they weren't really affected by what she was going through. People in abusive relationships don't also realize that when friends and family start pulling away, it's not out of malice. It's because they can't bear to watch the person that they care about continue to get hurt. From the outside, we can see the situation clearly, and we try to tell them that. But when they don't listen, it kind of creates this tension, and the person being abused starts listening to their abuser over their friends, which creates kind of animosity between the person being abused and their loved ones. Well, I kind of think Briana might not be entirely wrong with what she said. Maybe Grace did say some hurtful things to her when she was in that situation, probably because that the worst of Grace was coming out when she was seeing Briana go through that situation. At the end of the day, the situation kind of shows how complicated toxic relationships can be, not just for the actual relationship but the people surrounding the relationship too. It's like they're in another toxic relationship in itself. We need to be nice here. Briana really does need to reflect on her own behavior, and she needs to realize that Grace's action probably came from a place of love and frustration. So instead of fueling the fire, let's just hope that there's healing for both sides.